what does success actually look like? And is society's term of success truly what is going to make us feel fulfilled, right? So I had these and similar questions ever since probably becoming a mom mainly, right? And I thought always success would be building up a billion-dollar company and kind of pretty much making all of the money that I could make, buying all of the designer handbags that I could, and all of the jewelry that goes with it, and the designer outfits and whatever not, and going on luxury vacations and so on and so forth. And the thing that I feel like I've come to realize is, especially like in this past year, is that pursuit of more, in essence, this constant pursuit of more, really what makes us happy. Because while we're constantly pursuing more, and whatever that might look like for you, and I'm not saying you shouldn't still be ambitious, obviously I'm still ambitious, but that constant pursuit of more, what I think it comes down to is that distracted me and actually allowed me to not be in the moment so much. And I feel like for all those of you who are also parents, one thing that you definitely notice, I think, when you're becoming parent is you can almost tangibly see how time is just moving by. And you don't think 2 years is a lot or 4 years is a lot of time. But my sons, they are now almost 3 and 5. And just the last 5 years, if I scroll through the pictures sometimes at night, right, I'm just blown away, and it almost is, you feel this internal shock of how quickly just time progressed. I know this book is actually, or this video, because you clicked on the hook, is not just about that, right? It actually is about money, which is the funny thing. It is about money because I have gone down the rabbit hole of actually the FIRE movement, because at the end of the day, and that ties back into having children, I feel like most of us want the most out of life, especially as time progresses, is we want time back. We want time. Time is the ultimate luxury, and it's more important than whatever kind of net worth you have of your company and whatever kind of luxury bag you're buying next, right? And luxury vacations and whatever not, and all these things that we're seeing that a lot of us are striving towards, right? But it's also not just because my husband and I, we also had corporate jobs, right? And I feel like there's the same. It's not the fact that you're just trading hours for time, a certain amount of time, even if you're getting bonuses at the end of the year, you're getting a 13th salary, like a lot of companies do in Switzerland. You're just trading your time for money. And I think it's both of these things, right? It's either running towards something and wanting more and more and more, and you just like not stopping to think, why the hell do you even want this? Is it actually what you want? And is this going to actually make you feel fulfilled? Looking back in your life, right? If you could go to your funeral, there's this kind of like journal prompt that I read once about, or thought experience. If you are dying and you are could go to your funeral and you hear people talk about you. And so there's this pursuit of more. And then on the other side, there's just this thing of trading time for money, which also makes you feel stuck most of the time. At least that's why I became an entrepreneur, because it made me feel super stuck. And so I realized that the ultimate luxury is time. And so I went down the rabbit hole, Freudian slip. I went down the rabbit hole, and my husband and I have gotten way down deep into the FIRE movement, which essentially originates from America, surprisingly enough, since it's such a focus on consumerism too. But I mean, obviously there's a lot of cool stuff coming from America as well. So the FIRE movement is how to essentially become financially independent and retire early. And the point of it is that the ultimate luxury, I feel like, is for people that when they are able to do whatever the F they want to do. And whatever that is for you. If you want to, buy whatever kind of bag you want to buy, if you want to go luxury vacations, but you can't do it, and you're not having to sort of trade your time in order to do that in any shape and form, and you have assets working for you, and you have your money working for you independently, right? So like Warren Buffett says, you have to focus on, making money while you sleep. Otherwise, you never stop working a day in your life. I think that's the quote. I'm going to post it down below and check it like after this video. But yeah, so it's essentially that. So I stumbled across this book while I was going down a rabbit hole of a Swiss money blog. I also done the same in America, so it's really interesting to see a Swiss version. This one is Mark Pittet, and I hope I pronounce his name correctly, but I think it's in the French-speaking part, so I think it's Pittet or Pittet. Let me know if you're watching this. And so instead of 3 by 65, which is the normal retirement age in Switzerland, he's suggesting, which pretty much follows the FIRE methodology, to be 3 by 40 in Switzerland. And is this possible? And since I'm approaching 40 pretty quickly, and my husband already is 40, and we haven't sort of like achieved mainly also our financial goals that you wanted to achieve, we wanted to dive deeper and really make it a super priority for us, mainly also because we want to spend as much time as we can with our kids because we really like them, and also do the things that we want to do, however long we want to do it, and all this kind of stuff, without trading, services for money or anything like that, or products for money, which is already a good asset anyways in and of itself. But I think if you're not sure where you're aiming towards, then it's really hard to determine the goal, right? You're just essentially then shooting arrows and they're falling wherever and you're shooting them really well, but like where you want to really hit them, right? Where's the bullseye? So we're getting into this FIRE movement from this book, and I wanted to essentially like just give you some key takeaways because it was very, very interesting. So let's get started. I'm going to pull up my notes as well. So the first path to freedom is, of course, or to retire early. In Switzerland, the retirement age is 65. They might changed it, but like basically it was 65 when he wrote that book. And so there's two ways to kind of achieve that, right? So you can pay into the retirement system in whatever country you live in, right? Obviously in America, there's was a retirement system. And I actually worked for Ian before, and we administered those retirement plans for the employees of big companies such as Dole, Mattel. Well, Mattel doesn't exist anymore, but you got it, Adidas and so on. And so I actually know also the American forms really well. And so there's the 401k, right, the Roth IRA and so on. And first of all, if you're tuning in from America, you might already notice if you're watching American finance YouTubers, but you have to see if your company matches your 401k, because the amount of like cumulative interest, if you're just getting that match for whatever 401k you're paying into is insane. Like if you're not asking for this, or if your company doesn't offer that, I would probably change company, because that's a huge, big, bonus, especially if you want to and stay and continue staying in your corporate job. In Switzerland, it's 65. So you're paying into a retirement system, right? You do this really, really well, like a good boy and you're a good girl. And then at 65 or whatever the age is in your country, you can now retire, right? And then the idea is you can do whatever you want to do. What happened to me, I think why I'm so into finances and so into money is not anymore because I want to be like ultra rich. Of course, that would be a nice side effect. But I think what it mainly is because I watched my dad work his butt off for the company that he worked for. And he worked for that company for over 40 years. And then when he retired, he got his nice retirement money and he can live off of it, mainly live off of it. And then when he added having health issues to all of that, right, then it's not like the retirement that everyone maybe in the past made it out to be. He's always so excited once he could retire, but I feel like, what kind of life do you have left, right? I think that hit me. And so that's why, first of all, one of the main reasons why I feel like I became an entrepreneur as well. Of course, you always do, you have your personal stories. But the second thing why I'm looking into this so heavily right now is, first of all, are you going to get the retirement? This is probably a whole other video that we can go into in another YouTube video, in another thing about like talking about fiat currency and where we think this is going. So drop me a comment if you want to talk about that. But so this is like one of the things that we can talk about. Retirement. Will we get our retirement money? First of all, if you're paying into it, right? Because if you're almost 40 like us, and then in 25 years, there's a lot of stuff that can happen in the world in 25 years. So there's this one thought. So the second thought is now you take matters into your own hands, right? And that's where, of course, this book, Mark Pittet, comes in. I just propped it here, free by 40, right? In Switzerland. But whatever country you're in, and like I said, this methodology originates from America, so you can get a lot more information there. But there's a bunch of blogs in Switzerland as well. I'm going to link those down below and like shout out to those bloggers because they're doing an awesome job with all this information. So financial freedom, like we were saying, what is financial freedom? Financial freedom is that you, in my opinion, you have a number in your mind, ideally a monthly number where you can live well off of. We're not talking about just necessarily, in my opinion, fulfilling the basic needs. Of course, Mark Pittet, he talks about it, fulfilling the basic needs. What is your fixed expenses number when you look at your budget, right? What would be your rent or your mortgage? What would be your car payments if you have any? What would be your phone bill and so on? And then you are trying to hit that number with sort of assets that you're investing in, with money where you don't really have to do anything, that is working for you. If it's dividends from stocks, like I said, if it's asset from a business where usually it's not 100% of course passive income, you always have to still do something. He talks about it too. As an example, his blog, he still has to obviously do something, but it's way less time investment, right? And it's also exponentially, it can grow exponentially, right? Like in our situation, we've always seen that, and we've also done it ourselves when it comes to online course creators, right? When you have online assets in that way, you can, the more you're selling online and there's an infinite number almost of people online that can buy your product, then it's not dependent on just fulfilling it one time. Whereas if you're, for instance, a therapist and you have a one-on-one session with a client, you will only get paid that number. You will never get paid more unless you raise your price. But you can only raise your price also in a finite amount, right? Because otherwise no one would come to you, because there's other competitors, other therapists that are charging a similar amount. So the market is kind of determining your price. Anyways, I was kind of like trading, going there a little bit backwards. But so financial freedom is not necessarily also, when we're thinking about it, like I always thought in my 20s, to be honest, to be a billionaire, to own a yacht and all this kind of stuff. Because, and I agree with Mark Pittet on that, because I've met many, many more successful people in terms of monetary value than me. And the one thing, and my husband too, and the one thing that we started to realize right now, where it goes back to the start of this video, is what success really is that once they're starting to acquire more and more and more and more stuff, like we said, for instance, the yacht, that they are getting upgraded their house, their car, their clothes, their whatever it is, and now they're feeling like psychologically, of course, it's this lifestyle elevation where they feel like now they have to fulfill this, right? And so in a sense that, they're sending the kids to private school, for instance, and all this kind of stuff. And now you have your kids in private school, and maybe you have 2 or 3 kids, and you're like, now you cannot stop. You're in this hamster wheel. You cannot stop, right? Because, you could, right? Super, like, take your kids out and they might be, traumatized, not too much. But like, my point is you can't stop anymore unless you're downgrading your lifestyle, right? So in my opinion, what I thought in my 20s would make me financially free is now in my 30s, I'm realizing this is not the case until I'm really intentional and really know what is of value to me, what makes my life personally better. It doesn't mean it has to make your life better. You might value different things than I value, right? That you want to invest in money and time. But so the point is, I have to be really intentional and conscious about it and not let outside voices influence me, which is really hard to do nowadays, of course. And it's really hard to do, especially with social media, which kind of like really advertises and promotes this kind of consumerism lifestyle. But so let's talk about, of course, getting back then to the basics and the essentials. And that's why I feel like this book came in so handy and was such a wake-up call as well, is that you want to create this number, and you want to like figure this out and calculate this number out. If it's like 10,000 francs, euros, or dollar a month, if it's like 50,000 or 100,000 or 200,000, whatever it might be, but you must have this number in your mind. And you must know that once you hit this number, and we're getting to the point then how you can hit this number in terms of like he's getting to, and I'm referencing always the book just so so please go and read this book. And whatever I'm taking right now as well is largely from this book. So if you're getting dividends paid out, or if you're doing businesses or extra payments like online courses, extra side businesses and side hustles and so on. And so whatever you're creating to hit that number in assets to become financially free and retire early has to be in pursuit of that number. And then once you hit that number, of course, everything you make extra is nice, right? But I feel like we also have to be really honest with ourselves what we want. And, and I feel like there's people, and I am a huge fan, for instance, also of Alex and Leda, who I'm also a huge fan. But one of the things, because I know they are not parents yet, for instance, and I am of this belief that unless you're going through such an important and essential transformation in your life, I don't think you can really relate to it. You can never fully 100% relate to it. And I'm just saying that because I think I have the right to say that, because I have become a mom, and before that, I had absolutely not the same level of empathy that I have right now for parents, like not even close. And I feel really embarrassed to some of my friends that already had kids of how I thought they could finagle their life, but that's a different story. So what I'm saying with that is he is big on of course promoting. He wants to reach billion dollar status in his companies. I don't know how much he wants, and he wants to keep going, and that's totally fine. And I feel like if that's for you, then of course you're going after that as well. And I'm also really in pursuit of growth. I think if we're stagnant, then we become also unhappy in our life. And so growth is important, but it depends on where you want to take this, so to speak, right? So you have to notice. So to go back to this, so once you have a number, financial freedom number in your mind, you calculate it out, right? Maybe extra stuff as well. If you're paying for private school for your kids, that has to be a part of that number. And food, if you're liking to shop at gourmet food stores, or you're shopping at, I don't know, more like Costco in America, right? Or you're shopping at Lidl here in Germany, or Austria, or Aldi, taking into consideration. Be frugal, right? Frugal doesn't mean you're not generous when it comes down to it, but you're just really mindful about your spending. I think that's a big takeaway from his. And I'm just looking at my notes that I'm sharing with you. So the first step is really living below your means, right? You want to try to hit an expenses rate of about 60%. The best would be 50%. So, and the other 50% you essentially want to take and use that money to get it to work, right? And we'll talk about how you get it to work in just a second. So that's the one thing. And prioritize, of course, if you can, needs over wants. If you're really far away from that number, you have to, of course, downgrade your lifestyle a little bit. But you also want to make sure to avoid lifestyle inflation and just kind of stick with it right now, especially if you feel comfortable and you're happy in your life, right? Be intentional with your money, especially in Switzerland where the living costs are so high. Number two, you want to save, like I said already, the 40 to 50% savings rate. And this may seem impossible for many, and we're still working towards getting to that 50%, but it's achievable by making smart choices just in housing, transportation, and groceries. So for instance, he's suggesting that you have maybe one car as a family, not two cars, and you take the public transport because that will be cheaper. You're looking where you can shop for groceries, and maybe you're not going to Co-op here in Switzerland or Coop all the time. Maybe you're choosing Denners or Aldi and so on. And just look at your numbers, look at where it makes sense to save, where you want to save, and then go from there. It's a constant, of course, thing that you can improvement. Similarly, I found that finances are similar, in my opinion, always to fitness, because there's always something you can tweak, you can adjust, and it never stops. It's never like a destination, right? Fitness or also living a healthy lifestyle, which I'm really into. And the same, I feel like, for finances. For some reason, in my 20s too, I thought there would be like a final destination, not like the movie, but there would be a final destination where once I hit it, okay, this is it and this is great. No, it's not like that. So anyways, that's just something to really know about. And then he's also talking about that investing in index funds and real estate, and that is something that's also very, of course, personal. We can get into that in a little bit about this video, but I wanted to make it more about like a book review, this video, and just something to really start making you think about where you are in your financial life, and maybe also use it as inspiration, because we were really inspirational. So I'm not making this too heavily a video on investing. If you want to read also his investment strategy and what he's suggesting and stuff like that, I would definitely recommend buying his book or reading other books, of course, about investing, because it's always good to financially educate yourself even further, because there's always something to learn. And then, of course, we can also be really grateful, he says, to be in Switzerland, as inflation is fairly low compared to other countries. You have a fairly good political stability and a strong economy. So those are, of course, key factors as well. But I will say this, which I found very interesting, because that is something that we are debating actively as a family, is that when it comes down to the opportunity cost and what you think is more important in your life. However, so in the sense that let me backtrack, in the sense that he in his book was saying that at one point his family and I were thinking of immigrating to Costa Rica, because he knew that, for instance, immigrating there, and when you calculate, he gives you all kinds of math examples in the book as well. When you immigrate to Costa Rica, you, for instance, maybe can retire 10 years earlier than you could have in Switzerland. So is living in Switzerland more important for you and raising your family there, or is it more important for you, and maybe might be an adventure, to move to Costa Rica, retire earlier, and have your kids a totally different upbringing? So see, those kind of questions you can only answer as a family, because they're just so private and there's no one answer that fits everyone, right? It has to come from you. So yeah, to reiterate one more time, in case you didn't know, you are still confused, the FIRE mindset, like the financial independence retire early one, is simple. So you want to save aggressively, or as aggressively as you can, invest wisely the rest, and retire decades before the traditional average retirement age of 65, which, if you're honest, is not 65 anymore. But okay, so Mark emphasizes that FIRE is not just about quitting your job. Yeah, it's about also having options. Exactly, because I think in life we're happy if we can have options, and that you're no longer tied to a paycheck, because if you're tied to a paycheck, you essentially will never really stop working. And then the question is, if we're also receiving the retirement, and if you're really gonna be happy with what you're receiving. Like I said, for my dad, it was still quite a cut from what he was used to. It wasn't the same quality of life. So a few actual tips and key takeaways that I still wrote down for myself as well, that I would recommend for you to do as well, is like you want to track your expenses at one point, and I'm going to share the PDF. If you want to click on it, you can check it how I've been doing it for like 90 days, which completely opened my eyes as well, because I think if you're doing it every day, you're just like, what the heck? It makes you just really aware, and where focus flows, attention goes. Where attention goes, focus flows, something like that. Let me know if you know this saying in the comments. So track your expenses. Use whatever expense tracking tool that you like the most. Figure out creative ways to increase your savings rate. And you can do this also by asking for a raise in your current job, if you want to keep your job. If you're an entrepreneur, you focus so hard on increasing, of course, your revenue, your profits, your cash flow, if you're in your job, you can also add side hustles, and so on and so on. So there's all kinds of ways to actually increase the savings rate. It's not just by being frugal and cutting cost aggressively, is also you also want to be focusing on increasing your income. And then, of course, you can optimize your housing, transportation costs, because those are usually the biggest ones of a family, and also groceries. So housing, groceries, and transportation is usually the biggest ones. Healthcare as well, or health insurance, but that's one that you can sometimes not lower too much. And then you want to start investing early, because of course compound interest as well. He usually goes for a way kind of like more safer investment strategy that he's recommending, which I'm not going to say if I agree with it or not right now. Again, that's for everyone. You have to know yourself, right? What your goals are, your financial goals. But he mainly says to try to keep the money, of course, that you have, but just go for ETFs and stuff like that, and low index funds. So kind of like what Alex Mose is saying as well in that term. So a lot of people low index funds and ETFs. But then again, I have a little bit of a different investment strategy for us, for our family. And then you want to focus on passive income. So passive income, he likes real estate, of course. For us, my husband and I, we're looking heavily into businesses, because I feel like with businesses, you have greater return on investment, but it's also sometimes not depends. I don't want to say that. So I'm just going to document what we're going to do, because I think this is interesting for you guys maybe to see as well. Let me know if I should document this openly further. Remember that financial freedom is really about giving yourself choices. That's essentially why I wanted to record this video. It's not just for the retirement, but for how we want to live our life today and tomorrow. That's unique and different maybe for all of us. For my husband and I, we realized we didn't just want it to be tied maybe to a corporate job, which we already, of course, left years ago, over a decade ago. But we wanted to be geographically free, but we also don't want to be just tied to our laptops and work towards maybe growing billion-dollar companies when we don't know why we're really doing it and we're missing seeing our kids grow up. So we want to essentially buy back as much time that we can, spend as much time together as a family. And we will see where this is going to take us. I'm going to document some more about this. If you're interested, of course, hit the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments what you think about this, what research you've done on that, and let's get a community conversation going, because those are always the best. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.